Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Mythgard in Middle-earth. I'm Corey Olsen, the Tolkien professor. I can't even remember who I am this morning. That's my problem. And I'm joined, as always, by my friend Gryfflet, who is gazing south. And I just was noticing something interesting. So we're gazing south out of the gates of Glaniath here, just outside Pelargir, which is where Gryfflet has been very patiently waiting for me to continue. Yeah, JJ, I was very, very briefly worried that I might have become Mabel, but I don't think so. Just checked. Sorry. It's an Alice in Wonderland reference. But anyhow, so we where we're looking out this gate is south towards the river, right? So if sorry, hang on. There we go. I was in the wrong place. Okay, there we go. All right. Yeah, I switched something in OBS instead of switching something in the game there. All right. Okay, so yeah, scene change is precisely what I accidentally just did. Okay, so ironically, it was about to start playing the Alice in Wonderland intro after that reference. But anyway, okay, all right. Point is, here we are. And we're looking down at the river just north of Pelargir, which is where Aragorn, even at this moment, as Gryfflet is here in Glaniath, is preparing, right, the fleet that's going to sail up the river towards Minas Tirith. And of course, we remember how important the change of the wind is for that. That a wind from the sea is going to be, you know, boosting them up the river, and it's going to be what carries away the darkness, and it's going to be what encourages the Rohirrim, that really crucial wind from the south. Now, we're facing south right now, so we're looking east-west. We're not yet where the river sort of turns around, but I just couldn't help but look at the cloud cover that we see here, and it's interesting to me that on the horizon, like the lowest clouds are moving left to right, but up at the top you can see the upper clouds moving from right to left. Like there's this sort of disturbance down here in Pelargir that I'm noticing, and I don't know that they're actually planning that, but I think it's pretty cool because I can't help but look at the river and think about the breeze, the important breeze that is about to blow in from the south. But yes, Phil, exactly. This very extended moment, Gryfflet has very thoughtfully given Aragorn and his troops plenty of time to assemble and the people of Minas Tirith a brief respite before their battle. But again, this is just far from being one of the things that, I mean, I suppose one could complain if one were a fool about the time thing, right? That, like, I've got time to do all this questing while Aragorn is supposed to be hasting up, and it's unrealistic. As I've said many times, to me it is just like magic. I love it. I love that I have the opportunity. It's like a magical version of the story. A version of the story of the Lord of the Rings. Like, the story of the Lord of the Rings is unfolding, and as it unfolds, I have the opportunity to go everywhere, meet everybody, and do everything while it's happening in real time. To see so many different versions of the story, like to get the stories of what is going on here in every town in South Gondor as we go through, to see how the war has been affecting them to this point, where they are in this part of the story, the background of many of the characters that we'll only get, that in the books, of course, we only ever learn about in the eulogy for them, right? In the Song of Remembrance after the battle, when we learn that they're dead, is usually when we get introduced to them. Anyway, so many wonderful opportunities, and I love the fact that the game developers really leaned into this, right? On the one hand, they made this an open world to examine, and yet they still did, in a sense, kind of stubbornly overlay the narrative plot, right, on top of that. I say stubbornly because it didn't have to, they would have made their lives much easier if they hadn't done that, and they would have, avoided what I'm sure, there are people who probably make nitpicky criticisms about this and talk about how, how sort of silly and unrealistic, this is. But I love it. I think it's a marvelous kind of leaning into the whole world that they have going on here, to the genre. This is not one of the things the single greatest advantage. There are advantages and disadvantages to all storytelling media, right? But the greatest advantage of video games, especially an open world video game of this kind. Let's see, what am I looking for down there? I'm looking for Haradrim scouts and piles of chopped wood. Well, there's a pile of chopped wood over there, but that doesn't count. Well, no, it's a pile of wood to be chopped, which is, I suppose, not quite the same thing. Anyway, one of the greatest, in my opinion, the greatest single advantage of video games, especially open world exploration video games like this, over as a storytelling medium, is this kind of opportunity for dilation, right? To be able to there's a kind of leisure in this form of storytelling that you just can't get in any other genre. You can't get it in books, even really, really leisurely books like The Wheel of Time, right? Even there, you still have to mercilessly follow one thread, right? I mean, I know you could say he's following multiple threads at once, except he isn't following multiple threads at once, right? He's only ever the narrative only ever follows one story at a time. That's the way books work. When you're reading a paragraph, you're only reading one paragraph at a time. So, again, it's just the nature of that medium. It's how it works. Anyway, so, but of course, in this kind of an environment where the reader, where the audience has their own agency, right? They can make their own choices about what they see and where they go and how long they spend, and you've got multiple folks who can make different choices. You have a very different situation, and I think that's pretty cool. And as I say, they lean into it really, really well here. By the way, I think that really too little is said about video games as a storytelling, form, basically. You can hear people talk about, the difference between a visual adaptation and a book, right? Film to book is an adaptation sort of pathway that is discussed a good bit, and for good reason. That happens a lot, and it's really interesting to think about the differences. Sometimes people will talk about video games as an adaptation form. But usually, well, tell me if you think I'm right about this. It seems to me that when that happens, that most of the time when that happens, people are focused on the world building primarily. That is, the actual storytelling, I think, doesn't get the credit that it should get. And I don't know. I mean, Yeah. Anyway, well, oh, sure, Phil. Many, of course. Yeah, I'm not counting. I'm only speaking. I was referencing their adaptations. So yeah, certainly there are many video games that are not adaptations. But and that's fine. But still, in many, there is storytelling that's happening. And again, thinking about just sort of the general idea. What are the sort of dynamics of video gaming as a storytelling genre? It's a fascinating genre because of the way the audience participates in it. All right. Actually. Oh, wait, hang on a second. I forgot. I'm doubling up on the defeating Haradrim, and for my other quest, I need 2 more. Okay. Let's see. Oh, Phil, I see your comment from before, so it's the opposite of the Rings of Power. You're trying to goad me to talk about the Rings of Power here on the stream. I don't really want to do that here. But I will say, though, that I suspect that it's a similar thing. I think that one of the same things that makes me... Oh, oops. Didn't put on my hat fast enough, and now I have a wolf chasing me. Oh, well. Not desperately concerned. One of the things that makes me not mind at all the time dilation here makes me not mind... I do not get bothered in the slightest by not the time compression of the timeline. That's a totally different question. But the way in which, during the Rings of Power, the show is asking us not to think about time and distances for travel, especially. I don't say that they necessarily alter that, though in some cases it seems clear that they are. But as I say, we're asked to not mind about it, like it's not raised as an issue. And I find myself perfectly able to go along with that. I didn't have a bit of problem with that personally. That was an easy piece of disbelief to suspend. And in part, again, like, I don't know. I mean, I'm trained for this. I'm not worried about the passage of time. It is in that way, Phil, the inverse, right? I'm supposed to accept that time, time has passed, an uncertain amount of time has passed, and a large amount of distance has been traveled, and I'm supposed to not ask questions. Similarly here, in the opposite, right? I'm supposed to not ask why Aragorn hasn't already gotten to Pelennor Field long before Gryfflet. Anyway. Awesome. JJ, that's great. JJ says, I'm working on a moot paper on how the nature of choices in a game can itself contribute to the understanding of the game world. Yeah. No, I agree. I think that it is a fascinating genre. I think about video game developers are dealing with an audience dynamic which is vastly beyond anything that book writers or filmmakers are having to deal with, right? And that is the actual free will and choice of the players themselves. And of course, there have been some games which respond to that by restricting it. You know, the ones where you it's not open world, right? And you have a very limited path that you can do, and you know, you either accomplish the thing or you don't accomplish the thing. But yeah, it is very, very interesting and very complicated to think in terms of that kind of storytelling. Not, you know, knowing that you're going to have a wide audience, which is going to have very different sets of priorities and likely to make very different kinds of choices. So anyway, I'm very interested in that as a storytelling genre, which I definitely think video games are. I'm not saying it's all they do. Of course, it's not all that movies and TV shows or even books do. And of course, there are other modes as well, like drama and such. But anyhow, as I say, I do think that video games do not get enough focus on this kind of thing. Yeah. No, I mean, I've been thinking about this a lot. Well, I mean, you guys know I did a thing earlier this week. I've been consulting on a video game, and that's I'm not going to talk about that here. Spend time on that here. But again, it's been on my mind. Been stuff I've been thinking about. Okay. So, all right. So I'm moving up in my rep with Pelargir here. And, okay, so in the epic, I've got to find the entrance to the Vale of Tumladen. So, oh, no, Arvone's got something else for me here.
There's not but ill omens these days.
My friend, the Lord Regent has arrived in Glaniath. I heard a great commotion by the western road as he rode in, and he has made it known that he seeks his father who is lost in the conflict at Pelargir. Ah, right, this is all coming back to me now. I couldn't even remember what the quests were here. It's been so long. Okay, right. Yes, the sketchy, or at least dubious, Lord Regent of Pelargir. Right. Our folk have heard many strange things of late, but I am not certain of his whereabouts. Perhaps he has already spoken to the others of such matters. You have been a great help to me and my folk. I hope your charge bears fruit for the sake of all in Lebennin. Right, so I'm pursuing the dude, trying to stop him doing anything dumb. Because we got the corrupt one, right? This is the guy who is not the corrupt one, but he's now, like, misled and that sort of thing. Okay. Right. Yeah. Anyway. As I was saying, like, I think Lotro does a really marvelous job of this, and I am so glad to get the chance here to hang on, whom do I gotta talk to here? To get a chance to explore not only the main epic quest, but the separate quests, the landscape quests here, and get the story. Again, it's just such a marvelous opportunity. All right, Faltharan.
There's naught but ill omens these days.
I was beginning to worry that you had set off without me. Wait, is this the dude? Whom am I talking to? Faltharan. Yeah, that's him, isn't it? Okay. The folk of Glaniath have told me the Haradrim passed by along the roads to the west and south and did not halt their advance to attack. These folk have also spoken of hearing weakened cries of a man among their ranks. I hope my father yet lives, but I fear the tortures that the Haradrim might inflict upon him if he is indeed their prisoner. I'm forgetting, like, how crazy is this guy? Like, is there real? I mean, is his father actually a prisoner? I thought he was deluded, but maybe I'm wrong. Right, the brother was corrupt. I remembered that. The father was missing, and this guy is, yeah. He's a good son, and I know he is the good one, right? But I seem to remember. So I'm coming along to protect him from himself, as I recall, right? Isn't that more or less my job? The roadway to the west passes to the north. Oh, right. The roadway, which is going west, is north of here, right? Okay, and leads up to a great hill It's up a great hill to one of the south beacons of Lebennin. Let us follow it and see if we can discover where the Haradrim have gone. Okay. Oh, you're joining me. Oh, good. At least then I will know where you are. So that's nice. Okay, so we're going to go up and we're going to go to the north. Okay, and then the epic is taking us to Tumladen, so we'll see if we get a little vector there. All right, Faltharan. I'll tell you what. I'm going to get on my horse, and you can follow me. It'd be really cool if they mounted up, but it's okay. You can join me when we get up to the road there. I am being a burglarious babysitter, Drow Snake. Okay, let's see. Hang on now. So here's the road that passes to the north. And I'm headed up towards the beacon. Is this... Okay. Right. This is the west road that passes to the north. But I'm actually supposed to ignore this road and carry on going across the river because this is the way to the beacon. Fine. Okay. Great. You like to imagine that he's riding with me like Gimli and Éomer? Sure. Well, I mean, I only have a small pony. If I were... Whoa, okay. There we go. Putting on a burst of speed. Oh, hang on. The Haradrim have overrun the road. Oh, hang on. He's going to want to help with this. And I'm not going to want to do it mounted, so... All right, Faltharan. Tell you what, I'll even let you tank him. How about that? Sick him. There's a Haradrim shield bearer. Go get him. You got it. What do I have to personally introduce you to? Hey, Faltharan shield bearer. This is Faltharan. Faltharan, this is the Haradrim shield bearer. There we go. See, I just needed an introduction. That's fine. We've got a bunch more shield bearers. Boy, if everyone's bearing shields, does... Oh, I see. They mean a shield bearer merely in the sense that he's a dude who has a shield as well as a sword. That's not normally what it means when you say that someone is a shield bearer. That is, normally it means you're bearing like a full shield, like for other people, right? Like that other people are benefiting from the shield that you were bearing, like you have the shield while they wield the spears, kind of deal. And no, did I forget to stealth myself? That was silly. Oh, Faltharan, look at you. All right, no offense, but look at this guy. This guy just lounging up here. Can't say he's not keeping watch, but. Okay, Faltharan. You're doing great. You're doing great. And we only need 3 of them. Oh, look, and here's the 3. Okay. We'll just get those 2, and then we'll be ready to go. What do you say? Phil, I was thinking the same thing, that I should see Faltharan's stats, but I guess you don't when they, you know, become your... Oh, man, Faltharan, you made him turn around just as I was about to stab him in the back. That was inconvenient. Well, it's fine. Okay. All right, we did it, Faltharan. That's great. Call forth and defeat the leader of the Haradrim. Okay. I hate calling things forth because you've got to unstealth to do it. Here, Faltharan, can we go up here? Can we maybe not get an introduction to those particular shield bearers? Here we go. Is that him? The slaver? Just blew the horn. Maybe this is the guy. Oh, yeah, he looks bossish. Okay. As the Haradrim slaver falls defeated, you can hear the labored breaths of a man nearby. Is your dad up here somewhere, Faltharan? Let's look. Hey! Look at this. We've discovered Lord Sirgon of Pelargir, bound and barely standing. Hey, Faltharan, look at that! Oh, sorry, I was trying to talk to him instead of using the pole. Rookie mistake. Too weakened to support himself, Lord Sirgon falls to the ground.
Gondor.
I'd begun to lose hope, my friend, but I fear our journey is not yet over. My father's condition is greatly concerning. He looks starved to the bone, and his wounds risk infection. I wish to look over his wounds, but I do not wish him to worry to see the worry in my eyes. Speak to him and draw his attention for a moment. Okay. All right, here we go. Sirgon gazes into the distance at the ruin of Pelargir, his eyes heavy and laden with tears. He musters a weak smile as you approach him. I believe none yet live to search for me, but you have proven me wrong, burglar. You have renewed the hope that the men of Harad stole from me as they forced me to watch my city burn. I may be but a lord of ruins, but my family lives yet, and there is still a dawn waiting to pierce those skies. So true, Sirgon. I'm glad you were paying some attention to your son, whose whole darkness is the whole reason we're here. My father needs the care of a healer, and Pelargir is no place for the wounded. There is a fortified haven nestled in the mountains to the east known as Tumladen. It is a shelter to my people during times of war, and indeed many of the folk of Lebennin and Lasarnach have already sought refuge within its walls. It is there I must bring my father, and with haste. With Pelargir in such ruin, Tumladen may well be the only shelter that still remains in Lebennin. While I long to look upon my wife and son again in Ostanglebed, we have come too far to make such a journey. My father is in dire need of food and rest, and I too grow weary, for bearing this blade and armor so long has tired me greatly. I know it's not your normal deal, but you did fine. I know you desire to rejoin Lord Angbor, but if you would meet me and my father in Tumladen, I can aid you in readying yourself for the journey ahead. The gate wardens have been known to refuse outsiders during times of war, but if you mention my name, I am certain they shall let you pass. I mean, so Gryfflet gets to know the, like, don't you know who I am thing with the guards at Tumladen. All right. Excellent. Well, and I can't say I'm not sorry that I don't have to, like, escort them all the way, because that would be awkward. All right. Let us mount up. Okay. Let's see. Go slowly, carry on. We don't want to go off a cliff here. Okay. Now we can trot down the hill. Okay. Easy does it. Yes, I was wondering about that, Tomas. If, how many quests... Tomas was saying that he wishes there were more quests through Gondor after the fall of Sauron. Yes, yes. I know that new areas of the game, like for them to release new areas of the world, that's really fun, right? And I know we're about to get a new one, and finally, like, the missing piece of the Greenway is going to be completed. Not saying I'm not excited about that. That's going to be awesome. However, I think I agree with you, Tomas, that as much as I enjoy and will enjoy seeing other parts of the world, new layers of old parts of the world to continue their story. What's going on in Dunland these days after the fall of Saruman? what's going on, through Rohan after the battles and the beginning of the reign of King Eomer. What's going on here in South Gondor. These are all things that I would love to hear more about and know more about. So that would be awesome. That would be awesome. Exactly. Drow Snake, I want many partings, but not just along the road. I want many partings everywhere. Right? Just about everywhere. I think we could probably, I don't know. I mean, even in Mirkwood and Erebor, we'd want it, I think, but okay.
There's naught but ill omens.
What interest have you in Tumladen? You explain your adventures with Faltharan and Lord Sirgon and your desire to reunite with him. Ah, so that's it then. Yes, the Lord and his son arrived quite recently. See, we do go, Phil, back in the other direction, right? Sometimes time and distance are dilated, and we're able to, indulge in infinite questing while time-sensitive things are pending, waiting for us, right? But then there are some times like this, when the guy who can barely walk and his son on foot, limping, beat me to the town, right, where I galloped straight on a horse. Yeah. Well, Tomas, I absolutely assume that they will need to do the scouring of the Shire. Obviously, I mean, I know that they mean to do that they're planning to do that. I remember talking to Chris Pearson and him saying years ago that he was fully planning that Lotro would be the first Tolkien adaptation ever to do the scouring of the Shire. But yeah. So I mean, I know it's in the plans to do it, but we'll see. But again, there's more at stake, right, than just the Shire, for sure. Yes, and exactly, JJ. The stuff you see in the Shire and Yonder Shire are definitely setting up for that, clearly. Okay, all right. How can you be certain of my intent? I can kneel in respect. On your feet, I shall allow you entry, but do not make me regret trusting you. No worries. Look, do you have any idea who I am? This is Gryfflet. Tumladen has become home to many displaced refugees. Okay, I'm supposed to talk to White City refugees in Tumladen. Okay. So, this... am I to understand, then, that this is the stronghold to which women and children from Minas Tirith are being sent? Like, this is where they're headed? That's cool. Lovely. What's this up here? Yeah, so in BTS, before the Shadow comes out, am I going to try it with either Gryfflet or Wigan, or start fresh with one of the new race class combos? It's tempting. It's tempting. So we'll have to see. You guys will have to let me know. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to be like the first one to play it. That's not my bag. However, next month in November is the Signum fundraising campaign. We delayed it from September. We normally do it September to October. We delayed it. We're doing it November instead this year, which means my annual Lotro Marathon, which didn't happen at like the end of September or beginning of October, because that was insane. That time, was insane for me, is yet to come. My hope is to do my annual Lotro Marathon on the 12th of November, Saturday the 12th of November. And so I was wondering, I've left poor Wigan in Mordor for a year now, since the last marathon, right? So poor Wigan needs to finish Mordor and get out and move up towards, I think, northern Mirkwood in his pursuit of the epic quest. Or I could, one does not simply leave Mordor, apparently not. But it is another possibility. It is another possibility that I could do some questing in Before the Shadow, since I could start a new character and do some questing through that since it's brand new. Anyway, so I'm open to suggestions there. My own inclination is to continue moving Wigan forward because I want to see more. Right? Wigan is the one going fast, though Gryfflet is threatening to catch up with him, right? Because Gryfflet rides so much more often than he does. Yeah. So Tomas is also wondering, when can we start proposing new books for the Academy? Well, soonish. I think that so here's what's happening. Alice in Wonderland won the election last time. Alice's Adventures, I should say. And I'm doing Through the Looking Glass right now. That should be done by the end of the year. I'm looking to finish Through the Looking Glass, which is so phenomenal and so important for Tolkien's work. Tolkien and Lewis both. I'm looking to finish that by Christmas, basically, this year. And so I'll finish that. I'll finish that by Christmas, and then we'll start the War of the Jewels, Volume 11, which was delayed. Remember, we were supposed to do that last year, but I did The Nature of Middle-earth instead, concerning which, no regrets whatsoever. But it did push back the War of the Jewels. So we're going to do the War of the Jewels starting in January, and that'll take a little while, but then we will have a new elected book after that. And keep in mind, we're getting towards the end of the history of Middle-earth. We'll do the War of the Jewels, we'll do another elected non-Tolkien book after that, and then we'll do the Peoples of Middle-earth, and then open elections every time, because we'll be done going through, we'll have mostly finished the Tolkien corpus, actually. I guess not 100% finished everything, but we'll have done most of it by that point. Some people have said, are we going to do like the Baron and Luthien and Fall of Gondolin? And no, we've done them. We've already done them. Everything in those books, including the Numenor book that's coming out now, it's all been done. They're very, very useful and beautiful books, gathering together stuff from across the history of Middle-earth. Really, I'm so glad that they exist, because it makes it so much easier for people, like the Numenor stuff, for people to really read more of what Tolkien wrote about Numenor and to follow the development of his thought about the fall of Numenor. Really, really cool opportunity. Because you have to otherwise go through, and pick elements out of 4 different volumes of the history of Middle-earth, and that's not really accessible for a lot of people. So anyway, that'll be great fun. It is true that we could still do the Beowulf translation and Sigurd and Gudrun and the Fall of Arthur. It's true, and we'll see. But I think we'll probably let the voters choose that. We stopped the voting on the alternate books just because once we were clearly committed to the history of Middle-earth, it became a sort of a silly formality. And we decided that, okay, over years that people had spoken, we want to go through all the way through the history of Middle-earth. And so we just have been. But once that's done, there'll be an open question, because you got to think, at the very least, Tomas, even if we do the Beowulf translation, Sigurd and Gudrun, and the Fall of Arthur, there's which do we do first, right? I mean, which do people most want to do? So I think we will do open elections there, in which Tolkien books will be candidates, and then open elections in which Tolkien books will not be candidates. So anyway, we'll see about that. The election will come at the beginning of the year. Sometime after we start the War of the Jewels, will be when we will do that. So then we can know where we're going after that. Finishing Dante as well would be fun, right? We did Inferno. It would be fun to go back and do Purgatorio and Paradiso. But anyway, all right. So where are we? I came up here because I saw the glowy windows. This is really interesting. So here's what I'm thinking about here, architecturally. I mean, you know, the architecture is old Gondor, old grand Gondor, and that's great. However, what I'm trying to think about is what is the purpose of these buildings? They're not fortresses, obviously. This is a big old, you know, courtyard with a big old fountain in it. I know we're inside the walls, but the question I'm asking myself is, what was the purpose of this place when it was built? When in the... So I gotta go back to the walls now. Or I'm running into wagons. When in the, you know, high days of Gondor, this was constructed, what was its intended purpose? It's being used for refugees now. Look at these gates. Nice thick wooden gates. A double gate here. Oh, what does our ceiling look like? Look at our ceiling. You know what that doesn't look like? I mean, the fancy tiling does not look like it has like murder holes in it. I mean, these are nice thick walls, and this is a nice sheltered valley, and you throw up these walls across it and you can't get in. I mean, very limited ingress into this valley. Nice thick wall, double doors, but they're doors. A little Sally Port, like that. They're doors, but they're not like, there's no portcullis. It's possible, JJ, that in the time, in like the height of Gondor's glory, they made murder holes behind invisible, like in invisible flaps, behind the fancy tiling. You know, you can't rule it out. But then again, once in here, there's no internal defenses. You've just got those two gates. What I'm saying is, I don't think this was intended to be a last desperate refuge in time of need. I think it's been adapted that way. I mean, look at these buildings. You know, this could be a, you know, I don't know what. Campus of a Gondorian liberal arts college or something. I mean, it was clearly a town. It's isolated up in the hills. It's got gates. Oh, Prince, you must be new here. Oh, no, this is what we do. Is saying I'm overthinking it. Yeah, no. So, Prince, I will explain very briefly. This is the premise. I derive tremendous fun out of this premise. I am playing this game, and when I am playing this game, I am exploring. I am imaginatively exploring the world of Middle Earth, and so I am accepting everything that I see as as part of the historical landscape of Middle Earth, and seeing if I can do a reading of that, seeing if I can understand that. What I'm doing essentially is sort of seeing how well, by doing this, I find that the world building that they've done in this game stands up really, really well. That's not to say that everything that I'm saying, that every conclusion that I draw or everything that I observe is something that I'm claiming to be the intention of the game developers. It may be it may be they did not have any such intentions. The question is, does it work, and how well does it work? Some regions have worked better for this than others, but it's great fun. It's great fun. So yes, I am. It is the game within a game that I play in doing Lotro, and it's a great time. Okay. White City Refugee. And I would say, by the way, in passing, that in my opinion, if you're inside a video game and you're looking at the landscape and you allow the thought, oh, it's just a tile set, right, to creep into your head, it's not that you're wrong. You may, of course, be quite right. But you're depriving yourself of fun. There is fun to be had if you look past that, if you sort of accept that. There's a sense in which it's almost like, it's not exactly the same thing, but it's almost like if you allow yourself while reading to remember that you're only looking at printed words on a piece of paper, right? Normally you're not thinking about that. The printed words on the piece of paper are the mechanism through which you are seeing something else, right? Through which your own imagination is being invited to invest. The graphics tile sets that they use to construct landscapes in video games are similar. They're more intrusive in a sense, right? That is, investing in reading a book, investing in the words on a page is a more pure invocation of your imagination, right? Whereas the tile sets do more of the work, right? They don't leave you to picture what it looks like. They're showing you what it looks like. But that doesn't mean there's no work for your own imagination to do. And if we turn off our own imaginations, if we don't allow the kind of graphical tile sets and things like that we see in a game to be at all, to any extent, like words on a page when we're reading a book, then, as I say, I think we're depriving ourselves of an entire layer of fun, which can be done, which can be had for the investment of that kind of thing. Anyway, this is... sorry, I mean, I guess this is what you get when you get an English professor playing video games on a stream. Okay, sorry, White City Refugee. That was extremely rude to start the conversation and then leave you hanging. Do you plan to travel to Minas Tirith? I would advise you to rethink your course. If the city is not already besieged, it soon will be. Much of my family has been evacuated, but my sons remain behind at the request of their commander. They will defend the city, and are glad for the chance, but I am afraid for them. As we left Minas Tirith, I saw smoke rising from Osgiliath. I hope Faramir holds it still, but I do not know how long even he can last. Sorry, I can't even tell you how delightful the words "how long even he can last" are. He is the son of the steward and very brave, but I have heard that the armies arrayed against us are vast and uncaring. I have heard also that Boromir left on an errand to the north and has not yet returned. I would feel better for my sons if Boromir returned and stood on the front lines. May it be soon! Right now we await word that it is safe to return to the city. Tumladen has enough supplies for its garrison now absent, so we should be able to stay as long as necessary. But I hope this is resolved quickly. Awesome. Okay, so she is part of the epic quest line. Yes, she is. So we can see how the epic quest line we are getting. And again, I love the layers of it, right? We're getting from these... I appreciate the epic quest, but what I love as I'm going through with Gryfflet, right? The epic quest gives you a taste of what's happening, right? So that you get some version of this fuller story. You know, the epic quest line drives you across southern Gondor and gets you to meet folks and hear what's going on. So, you know, that White City Refugee is telling us some of the backstory so that we're prepared for the battle when we get there. But it's like the epic quest line is like when you're going through and being quest completionist like I am. I know I'm not being absolutely completionist, but when being as relatively quest completionist as Gryfflet has been, it's like, you know, the epic quest line becomes almost like a skeleton, right, which is being fleshed out by all of these other quests, and that is so much fun. Hey, Faltharan. All right, you guys made it, and in such good time.
Darkness.
At last you have arrived. What took you forever? So I was looking around. We were having conversations. It's what we do. My father and I were beginning to worry you were not coming after all. In our short time here, I have heard peculiar things, but there are more pressing matters at hand. Are there?
There's naught but ill omens.
My father's health is of great concern to me. Oh, I was going to say, is your father's wounds going septic? That would be more pressing. Although he has been in good spirits since we freed him from his captors, his flesh has grown pale and his breaths have been growing more labored by the hour. I think I know what we could do. I have yet to find a healer within Tumladen, though I am certain one must be here. However, I learned of interesting things from the Rangers of the North before they left Pelargir. They spoke of kingsfoil as an herb of great restorative use and gave it the name of athalas. Can you imagine such things? Kingsfoil is naught but a weed. Yet I cannot leave any stone unturned. If you would seek out kingsfoil outside Tumladen and return it to me, I would be grateful. Also, if you happen upon any food within Tumladen, even a mere loaf of bread, it would greatly aid my father's recovery. Okay, great. I was wondering if we were going to get that, right? Because, of course, we are not far. I know it's Lasarnach, where Gandalf is going to take, what's her name? Eorlas, to find some athalas. But we're not far. Like, clearly, it's going to grow all across here. So I was suspecting that we would get an athalas quest here, a kingsfoil quest. That's great. When my father and I arrived here, the gate warden told us of many folk of Minas Tirith seeking shelter within these walls. Many indeed. From what I can tell, they seem to delight in rumor-mongering, and I do not blame them, for thinking of unbelievable tales and happenings may be the only respite from this encroaching darkness. For my part, I have heard little of Minas Tirith in recent days, and I suspect that the folk here might know more. Speak to them while I tend to my father, and tell me of what you learn. Oh man, so I got another 5 people. I got 8 conversations to have, one of which I have done. Okay, so I'll look for a loaf of bread, and I'll talk with, like, everybody now, apparently. Okay, so yeah, you see that this was hardly set up to accommodate. I mean, like, people are camping in pretty random spots, right? I mean, like, this is not what this place was designed for. I'm pretty convinced. A nosy Tumladen warrior? Is he going to find my pies? Is he going to try to take the loaf of bread if I find it? Do I have to sneak it past the guy? Hey kid, what's up?
My family says that it is dangerous outside.
Do you think we'll be safe here? My mother says we will be, but she hasn't spoken much since we arrived here. Father stayed in Minas Tirith to guard the gates, but I wish he had come along with us. If you travel that way, you'll look after him, won't you? Oh, sorry, so we have a cameo appearance from Pixie, who is just joining me. Okay, if we travel... Yeah, I'll look after your dad. Well, look, I had no promises, but I'll look in on him. Burglar or not, you would be wise to seek shelter here, traveler. The steward showed great wisdom in sending us to safety. Minas Tirith's defenses are great, but even greater are the forces of the enemy, who would see it torn down stone by stone. So, I can't agree with you, lady. I mean, like... This is a secure place and out of the way, right? I mean, it's being out of the way seems to be one of the primary things that Tumladen has going for it. I mean, are its defenses in fact stronger than Minas Tirith? I really don't think so. I mean, again, those doors, nice thick doors, nothing like the gates of Minas Tirith. And the walls, they're white, not black. Which means they don't use whatever strange Numenorian technology the ones in Minas Tirith use. The walls of Minas Tirith, like the walls of Orthanc, which are undentable by ints, for instance. Okay. So I apologize for any strange sound effects you might hear. Like you might have just heard the sound of Pixie. Yes, that's you. I'm talking about you. Licking my hands while I'm trying to play the game. This is a common thing. So yes, any strange slurping sounds that you hear, it's nothing sketchy. It's just the puppy, and she also might go to sleep, and you might hear her snore. So, apologies in advance for that too. Okay, I've got a loaf of bread. Is that nosy dude gonna try to nab it from me? I'm getting looks from the puppy because I have my left hand on the keyboard, of course, and she's looking up at me like, this is in the way. What are you doing? Okay, so, all right, it was just the bread up here. See, yeah, look at these pauses. Like, this was probably a city, but I'm gonna guess that it was like a city of retreat of some sort, right? That it was, and I don't mean of retreat like of refuge. I mean like, I was kind of joking about it being a Gondorian liberal arts college, but something like that, like a place where you would go for like isolated scholarly study and discussion. I could see that. Yeah. Ooh, the Great Hall of Tumladen. Can I go in? Well, wait, maybe I should talk to the refugees. I might get sent in. Wow. Okay. Now the puppy's helping me with the controls. Pixie, you're being a considerable nuisance. Yes, you are. Okay. Where am I? Oh, I see. When I cross the bridge and I'm coming down the other side. So it's on both sides of the river valley, which is fascinating. See, again, would you do that? I mean, if you were really intending this, like if when you were originally building Tumladen, you were meaning it to be, as maximally defensible as possible, right? If this was supposed to be your strongest refuge, you can see how Dunharrow, I mean, man, that path up to Dunharrow, I mean, it's the only way to get up there apart from, the Paths of the Dead, which is pretty safe, except for from dead people, but that's a different problem. And, so you can see how they're like, whatever, like we don't even need to have layers of defense. Like we just defend our way up this path and it's going to take them ages, so like it's, that path alone makes Dunharrow a very defensible, place up in the hills. This just has the wall, right? And again, it's a good wall. It's a good wall and it's a nice spot. But with the river going down in between, like you could have defended river crossings. You'd use the river internally within the, so if you get in the valley, you've still got to get across the river, right? So you could use that as you'd have 3 or 4 lines of defense easily could do that with this terrain and this river. And then make sure that like your very, very safest stuff is on the inside. But JJ, I'm thinking exactly the same thing, that the way that the river is bridged like this does indicate a sort of resort or tourist destination and not a fortress. Yeah, this was clearly never really intended when it was built to be a fortress. I mean, look at this, just like staircases, right? I mean, who does that? So yeah, it's very sensible for them to use it as one. And again, I think what it mostly has, especially when compared to, say, Minas Tirith, it's not that it's more defensible than Minas Tirith. It's just very defensible and also very out of the way, basically. Right? I mean, that's the advantage that it has. The armies of the orcs will take a while to get here, and if they do get here, it'll take them a while to break in. But the hope is that it would be a long time before they actually get here.
What has become of our lords in the east, I wonder?
Do you know what happened in Pelargir? Yeah. The people of Glaniath that have come to Tumladen have told of hearing a great chorus of screams, even from so far away. Oh, don't worry, it was the bad guys screaming. What happened to the Corsairs, and why do their ships still sail on the Anduin? Oh, it's good guys sailing them now. Complicated. Lord Angbor has come, and he does not speak to us as openly as he once did. You tell the woman only that you cannot speak on the matter. Oh man, I'm going to leave her hanging? Like, we can't tell them about the victory of the Battle of Pelargir? Why do you keep secrets of us? Does the war go so poorly? Yeah, why am I keeping secrets from her? I mean, what's the danger of telling... I mean, the Battle of Pelargir wasn't fought in a corner.
Hello there.
Yeah, I am a halfling. Am I a hero? Well, you know, I don't like to brag. The boy looks at you with wide eyes and an admiring expression. You must be journeying to Minas Tirith. They are going to need you there. I am certain of it. There is going to be a war. It may have already started. Are you going to be in the thick of the fighting? I would if they'd let me. I heard there was another halfling in the White City. Really? Do you know him? I did not see him, but he could not have been much taller than I am, and I wager he will be allowed to fight. Why not me? I heard he was a friend of Mithrandir, the Grey Pilgrim. Perhaps that is the reason. Some folk have all the good fortune, and leave none for the rest of us. It is not fair. I'm sorry, dude. Ah, so you are one of the plot prep refugees from the Epic Quest line, telling me about Pippin and being a foreshadowing of Burgil. Loose lips sink corsair ships. I guess. You wouldn't have thought that was a bad thing. I mean, I know they're run by good guys now, but still. I did not believe I would ever think such things, but I am glad to be so far from my home. I have heard tales of a great army mustering in the ruins of Osgiliath, and though the steward has sent his son, I fear for us all in the coming days. Yes. Okay, so you're from Minas Tirith. What's up with the nosy Tumladen warriors? I need a nosy Tumladen warrior quest. Oh, here's another epic dude. They say I am too old to fight, even if the desire to protect my home and my family burns as brightly within my bosom as it does within those of younger men. I am not afraid to die if that death were to be in service of Steward Denethor or his brave sons. Love the loyalty to Steward Denethor, that's great. Still, I have been carted here to wait for the end with the children and the women. What justice is there in that? They say the son of the steward holds Osgiliath, but how long can we hope to stand against all the armies that pour out of the east? That city has changed hands before, but it seems to this old man that the next time it falls may be the last. When that happens, I think they will rue sending us away. The White City will have need of folk to wield swords, no matter their ages. Mark my words and mark them well. Okay. I hear you, White City refugee. Okay. Right, yeah, okay, Drowsnake is reminding me that Aragorn commanded you to only tell Gandalf or Faramir about the ships. Yep, no, I don't mind not talking about the ships, but, like, surely we can say, like, you don't have to, like, you heard all this screaming, but don't worry, it wasn't your, like, friends and relations, right? That doesn't seem like it's divulging an enormous secret, you know, that there was a successful battle and the Corsairs have been driven off, right? Is that like a deadly secret? Why should that be a deadly secret? I just like to tell people good news, you know, that's all. It's fun. Okay. Yeah, see, look at all these. It's the fountains, you know. Clearly not a fortress. Now, how do I get up here again? Oh, it's not up here again. It's just, there's a symmetrical one. Look at that. See, look at that. There's like a symmetrical fountain courtyard on either side, right? So I think that this is probably like where the philosophy department was based, and the other side is probably like where the fine arts faculty was based. Yeah. Old Gondor College. I still think that's where it was. Where am I? What am I missing here? Why can I not get to the... I'm just going to go overland. what I have to do. Oh, look, there's like a cliff to jump down. That's fun. Okay. All right. Milbalan.
This
I have heard tales of many strange things at the Battle of Pelargir, but I do not know what truth there is to any of them. You traveled with Lord Sirgon and his son. What have you seen? The man's face sinks as you remain silent. Forgive me, traveler. I only wish to keep my hopes up. Come on, like, Gryfflet wants to spread hope. You know, I do like those hats. Like the Gondorian tam. It's a good look. It's a good look. I like the Gondorian tam. Mythmoot costume idea. It's intriguing. It's intriguing. I could dress up as a Gondorian refugee this year. Okay. I can't get back to the gates from here. I think I've got to go across the river again. Let me mount up. Yeah, oh, and so I'm sorry I haven't done any lore questions yet today. I've been getting back into my rhythm of exploring and, of course, doing lots of, like, random theorizing. Uh-oh, it's the kids' caucus here in the middle of the bridge. They're all standing here looking innocent, like we weren't just throwing things over the edge of the bridge. Didn't even occur to us. Don't know why you're asking. All right, so I need kingsfoil outside. Oh, and I talked to the refugee. Hang on, did I miss that? Yes, I did. Right, because down here is where Faltharan is. I talked to the refugees, and they want to be encouraged. But I share their concerns, my friend. These are uncertain times. Dude, you know that the Battle of Pelargir was won, and they don't. And the fates of many may be decided by the actions of a few. It saddens me that their curiosity about the Battle of Pelargir must go unanswered for the moment, but the rangers have bidden me to keep my silence. Okay. Let us hope that Lord Angbor and Aragorn can reach Minas Tirith in time to repel the enemy. Fine. I won't increase the hope of the people. All right, let's go talk to Angbor, collect some kingsfoil. Angbor, all right, he's right at the gates. Okay, so I'll see him on the way out. We'll collect some Athalas. Oh, no, I don't have quest in my pending loot, do I? Okay, no, I don't. We're good. Good. I thought that those days were finally over. After that quest, I permanently missed in Helm's Deep because it was in my bloody pending loot. Hey, Angbor. You're just hanging out? We're just chilling, huh? Where's my... Oh, there he is.
You have done good work here.
Oh, right, this is the epic quest. I suspected that we would find these havens full of refugees from the White City, which means that the war will soon be joined, if it has not already begun. 4,000 swords travel slowly, well, especially on their own, but when they arrive, they will make all their points with sharp arguments. Ah, like it. We must make sure their path is free of obstruction. There is a good place to cross the river Erowe to the south, but it is held by the Haradrim. Let us go to the crossings and defeat these south runs so my army can pass. Okay. Good. So the two of us are going to defeat them. Good. So the army can pass. Excellent. Any Haradrim in Upper Lebennin pose a threat to the crossings, and they must be stopped. Okay. All right, so find the crossings of Erowe. Defeat the Haradrim that threaten the crossing. So there are only 6 of them? Okay, so that's The army will have faced greater threats. I can defeat 6 Haradrim anywhere, apparently. There are Haradrim all over. Even the ones I already defeated, I could go back and defeat them again, and it would count for this quest. Okay. All right, well, let us... How far are we from the kingsfoil? Not far. All right, let's go there on foot. Okay. Yep. I agree, Simpson. Let's hope... welcome, by the way. Let's hope that Angbor survives the war. I like his chances. I like his chances. The importance of the victory is more political than tactical, you think, JJ? It would seem so. All right. We're picking kingsfoil here. This place is crawling with enemies, though. I mean, you see all these deer? Yes, Simpson, I love how it is one of my favorite things. We're talking about this throughout the Rohan quests. I love how in their storytelling, when they're developing these side quests, how the dev team are playing with that poem, right? The eulogy at the end of the Battle of Pelargir field just looms so large through all of this, through all of Rohan and all of Gondor, doesn't it? I mean, we are being constantly reminded. What is that? Oh. That's Pelargir? No, it's the village? That's Glaniath there. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, so I mean, we were playing with that a lot as we were going through, Gondor, of course, or sorry, Rohan, of course, and it's definitely come up. Though I feel like it hasn't been as pervasive a presence, at least not so far. But it's definitely come up. Man, the kingsfoil is a little scarce on the ground around here. I'm surprised there aren't more predators here, but I think that, the deer must have killed them and eaten them all. Okay. Drosnik says there's a second song where the names of all of the slain are buried here. What just happened here? Oh, no, I just did the wrong thing. Okay, sorry. Hit the wrong button. Okay. Oh, there's some more kingsfoil. No, nothing but goats and deer. All is peaceful here in the greater Tumladen area. Okay, 3 more kingsfoil. 3 more kingsfoils. Oh, there's one across the road. Kings's foil. The weeding of the Westman's weed has proceeded apace here. Yeah, I reckon it has. Okay, sorry. So let's see. Drosnik, you had asked a question earlier. Let me see if I can answer it a little bit while I'm continuing to search for kingsfoil. Is there one of the regions I found myself most surprised by in the Lotro adaptation, in a good or a bad way? I was surprised by what's it called? Standguard. I was surprised by Standguard. It was a surprise. It was one of those things where, like, I shouldn't have been surprised, really. You know, I mean, like, as soon as I thought about it, I was like, well, no, this is clearly what should have been. But I wasn't expecting. I wasn't expecting the pervasiveness of the Wormtongue plots. When I was thinking about sort of what to expect in Rohan, the way in which this sort of depth, I guess you could say, of Wormtongue's political machinations I hadn't thought through the story in that way. I hadn't been expecting that. Again, I'm not saying that there was any reason I shouldn't have done, but I do remember being surprised when we first got that. But it was a pleasant surprise. I think it's a gorgeous adaptation idea. The way in which they sort of, as they do with so many of their landscape quests, lend this excellent texture to the base, the basic story that we get in the Lord of the Rings, the story of Wormtongue's treachery. And there are certain lines you can remember, right? What's that line that Gandalf says about Wormtongue? Who knows how deep his treachery goes? Something like that. Well, that's exactly. It's exactly we discover how deep his treachery goes. How long has he been betraying Theoden? What are his plans? And how has he laid them? Not only just to influence Theoden himself, but to sort of organize this takeover. And so that really sort of set the tone. The Standguard quests really set the tone for Rohan itself as we went through. And I was really, really interested in that. So I think that was a place where their adaptation story was, I found really interesting. And as I say, sort of not exactly surprising in the sense that, like, I can't believe they did that, but so not like a YouTube thumbnail shocked face kind of thing, but definitely interesting and in a very satisfying way. Well, Phil, by the time I got to the Great River, in the Great River, I was surprised by the hostility of the deer. But the implication, I think, is just that among the deer also in those border regions, there are strange legends of those who emerge from the Golden Wood, who are apparently to be attacked on sight. So, I mean, it's an interesting move on the game's part, but it certainly set a tone for the rest of the region. Okay, thank you, my friend. Although I am certain it was a simple task, you can understand my hesitation to leave my father's side course. My father still needs the aid of a healer, but I hope that these will hasten his recovery. Me too. Oh, you've got more. I've never seen Tumladen so filled with the people of Gondor. I suppose it should not surprise me, but it is a marvel nonetheless. You have done much for my father and me, Gryfflet, and I think it is time at last for you to rejoin Lord Angbor and his host. It has been difficult to discern who truly leads the guards here, with so many folk milling about, but perhaps you would do well to speak to whomever does. I have seen many guards patrolling the roads nearby, and I am certain they can guide you to their captain. Oh. Can I find a nosy guard? What about the... Oh, no, he's not nosy enough. No, he's a nosy warrior. He's not a guard.
This darkness is a
You should seek out Imladir at the barracks near the entrance to Tumladen. He leads the defense of Tumladen even in times of peace. Okay. Thanks for the tip. Oh, yes, JJ, you're thinking about Wormtongue's. Yes, think you that Wormtongue had poison only for Theoden's ears. Yes. Yes. Okay. Oh, there he is. Yeah, I remember seeing the named dude.
Why do you interrupt me?
You think I still speak for anyone here? No, that honor was taken from me the moment the steward's sister arrived. Oh dear. She speaks so surely of what she does not know, and those that seek shelter here will lend their ears to any whose voices boom above the rest. Oh dear. If talk is what you desire, then seek her out in the great hall. As for me, I shall keep these people safe from the enemy. Okay, so you're going to continue to do your job even though you're obviously resentful. The steward's sister? Really? Faramir's auntie is here? That's something. Okay. So, I'm going to go all the way up to the Great Hall in the far corner. I figured there was a quest that would take me there. Oh, no, I gotta go down this way. Okay. So, yeah, Drowsnake, that was definitely a pleasant surprise. Other areas. I mean, going back a ways. There we go. Going back a ways. One of my favorite quest lines is still the Red Maid quest lines in Gartha Garwin in the Lone Lands. And that certainly surprised me. And the connection to Tom Bombadil and Goldberry, both there and further south in the Lone Lands, surprised me. But I loved it. I loved the way those things came together, especially the Red Maid quest. I thought and still think that is a very thoughtful and sensitive storyline that is based on a very thoughtful and sensitive reading of Tolkien. A daring adaptation in some ways. The whole, like, Goldberry's sisters kind of deal. And sensitive to a layer of Tolkien's writing that he systematically de-emphasizes in the published editions, like in the published versions, like the final versions. What I mean by that is if you read through The Return of the Shadow and The Treason of Isengard and The War of the Ring, the history of the writing of the Lord of the Rings volumes of the history of Middle-earth, in his early drafts you can see there are many more references to like those kinds of nature spirits that are kind of lurking around. But as he revised those he tended to take those out. The question is, did he take them out because he changed his mind that they should exist, or did he take them out because he just thought they distracted from the story, and so he still like believed in them but didn't want to include them in the story? I think that the latter is more likely in most of those cases, I believe. Though it's very hard to tell. Christopher is always careful to point out that just because Tolkien has removed something from one of his drafts doesn't mean that he's rejected it. It just means he decided to take it out for the story. It can sometimes means he's rejected it. But anyway, so as I say, I think it's a bold adaptation. And, something, Drowsnake, that it makes me think of is I can't help but think of the reaction that so many Tolkien fans have had to the Rings of Power. And not just and I'm not going to launch into a Rings of Power conversation here, but I'm thinking about the kind of adaptation that the Rings of Power is. The whole the bizarre way in which so many Tolkien fans have sought to to voice their condemnation of the Rings of Power by calling it fan fiction, right? They're telling their own story. They're not telling Tolkien's story. Well, that is a form of adaptation, an important form of adaptation, of creative engagement with a text. There is a kind of adaptation which is a mere retelling of a story that's already been told, like the Lord of the Rings movies were. There is another kind of adaptation, which is a fill-in-the-blanks adaptation, right, which is telling stories around the edges of the main story. And this is something that a lot of Tolkien fans have not had to deal with. They certainly haven't had to deal with it in film adaptation until now, until we get to the Rings of Power. And when you're thinking about that kind of adaptation, it's a completely different, the question, when you're trying to assess, is an adaptation of that kind being faithful to the text? That question means something completely different than it does when it's a mere retelling, right? With a mere retelling, you put those two stories next to each other and you can very easily see similarities and differences and choices that they're making. And that's sort of a simpler, much simpler conversation to have. In order to assess whether a fill-in-the-blanks adaptation is being faithful to the original, you have to think about it a very great deal more. It's a much, much more complicated kind of situation. But of course, although Tolkien fandom has not had to deal with film, with that genre of film adaptation before, the Rings of Power, and a lot of people just really have not seemed at all prepared to deal with it, and nor even in the slightest bit willing to deal with that kind of adaptation. And yet the interesting thing to me is that video games do this all the time. This has been the space that Lotro has lived in for 15 years now, right? They have been doing fill-in-the-blank, both, right? You know, they do both retelling adaptations and fill-in-the-blanks adaptation, though honestly, I think their fill-in-the-blanks adaptation stories are better than their retellings. It's fun to be able to do session plays where you're actually playing through a retelling of the main story, but those are never my favorite parts of Lotro. I like them. They're fun and they can be really important in some ways. But I think that the greatest work that Lotro does is in the fill-in-the-blanks part. Anyway, I was made to think about this by talking about my reference to the Red Maid storyline in Garth Agarwin made me think about this because, as I say, that was a daring adaptation. Could you imagine if, again, I mean, I know it doesn't fit in the Rings of Power story, but can you imagine if in the Rings of Power there were a character who was like, this is another spirit who is Goldberry's cousin, except she's become evil? Can you imagine how people would have ripped that to shreds, right? How people would have been like, how many Tolkien is rolling in his grave memes there would have been about that kind of thing, right? But not only did Lotro do it, they did it really well, and it's fine. Lotro players love it. The attitude toward it's one of the other things which I have come to appreciate more. So, of course, I've been doing. This is my first regular Gryfflet stream in ages, mostly because I've been caught up in the season 1 of the Rings of Power. Friday afternoons is the day after it releases, and I've been doing reaction shows and blah blah blah, lots of things going on Friday, so I haven't been able to do my regular stream much in a long time. And I got to tell you, coming back today to Gryfflet after doing that, after engaging with all of that stuff, it is such a breath of fresh air. Like, the Lotro community is, not only is the game a breath of fresh air, the community is a huge breath of fresh air. To like be in a place where people are reasonable and sensible and like open-hearted towards this kind of adaptation, so we can get a conversation like the one I am about to have with the sister of Steward Denethor, and this whole plot line of what's going on in the refuge where the women and children were sent. And instead of everybody being like, that's not in the books, this is not Tolkien, this is mere fan fiction and therefore horrible and evil. Instead, we get people who are like, this is so cool, like we get to meet Denethor's sister, how awesome is that? And you hear Burgle and Baragon talking about the maidens, right, and the women and children being sent away. Where are they going? What are they doing? What are they thinking about there? It's the opportunity to fill in the blanks, to see around the story is so much fun in Lotro, and it is delightful to be around people who embrace that as fun rather than seeing it as some kind of threat to the books that they love. Anyway, wait until I get to Gundabad. Oh man, Edith. So good. I am so looking forward to dwarf stuff, especially since I've been doing a lot of thinking about dwarves lately. But anyhow, all right. Lady Terenis, let's talk. And
What
then I
is
gotta
the
go.
meaning of this?
Greetings, burglar. Am I to presume that you travel with Lord Angbor? If he has arrived, I have much to ask him of the war. Oh, so I can hand you off to Lord Angbor, can I? You informed Lady Terenis that you traveled with the Lord of Pelargir and his son, but intend to rejoin Angbor. So you were at Pelargir then. You have my attention for the moment. Okay.
Why do you interrupt me?
You must forgive me if I am too direct, but I wish to learn more of the battle at Pelargir. You have traveled here safely, and our walls remain unbreached, so I can only assume you found victory, but I am curious as to how. The Corsairs had many men, certainly many more than we could equal, especially after the great mustering at my brother's city. How then did they fall? Was it the valor of a few great men? And most curious of all, why do their ships still sail on the Anduin? Lord Angbor has just arrived, so I am told, so perhaps I shall ask him as well. Now this lady I don't mind not telling. You tell Lady Terenis that both you and Lord Angbor have taken an oath to keep secret the truth of the Battle of Pelargir. Oh, have you now? I offer you a choice, Gryfflet. Either tell me of the truth, convince Lord Angbor to speak of the battle, or I shall have you thrown into a cell for plotting against the people of Gondor. Okay. Be right back. Okay. Do I have to come back and report to her so she can throw me into a cell? Or do I just... I'll talk to Angbor, see what he thinks. Maybe we'll just agree to run. My brother's city, yeah. Drowsnake, yeah. And Drowsnake, what that makes me think of? It makes me think of, again, those early drafts of the story. One of the things that was really emphasized, and I think is one of those things, by the way, which I think is not changed. In Tolkien's original version of the story, the Lord of Minas Tirith, the steward of the city, he's the steward in the sense that he's not king, for like good reasons. But the power of the Lord of the city is, I think, easy to overlook. That is, when we get to Minas Tirith, we are already thinking about Aragorn, right? We see Minas Tirith from the point of view of people who are familiar with the king who is coming back. We know Aragorn is coming eventually, right, to Minas Tirith. He is coming to Gondor, and he's going to claim the kingship, and he deserves the kingship. So when we, as readers in the story, meet Denethor, he's already a kind of marginalized figure in our minds, right? We don't ever see Denethor the way that the people of Gondor see Denethor, right? Steward sounds like a secondary title. I mean, it is a secondary title, right? But it's easy for us to think of, like, this is the guy who's just warming Aragorn's seat for him, right? And soon Aragorn's going to come and set things to rights. All true. But that can blind us, I think, to the political situation, which again Tolkien emphasized more in the early drafts of the text, and that is that the Lord of the city is the Lord of Gondor. I mean, he's not called a king, but he absolutely has the dignity of a king, greater dignity than most kings, and greater authority than most kings. So Denethor is, like, Minas Tirith is Denethor city. Very, very much Denethor city. And I think that we can lose sight of that. Everybody might not have exactly the experience that I'm describing, but I do think it's an interesting sort of effect of the way the story unfolds. In the published book. Okay, let's see. I know you're right, JJ. He's not exactly warming his seat, right? He's warming a totally different seat. It's true. I'm speaking a little more figuratively than literally on the seat warming thing. But yeah, and you're right, Belangsmond. Boromir doesn't exactly help our perspective before either. Yeah, I agree. It's hard for us to truly understand Boromir's stature. Like, Boromir is a way bigger deal. It was many, many readings of the text when I was a kid before I really even began to imagine. I always pictured Boromir as a warrior from the south, and I know he says the things that he says about himself, right? And his position is our, and you get a glimpse of it, right? He was our captain general, says Faramir. And, but still, it's hard to feel it in the same way. It's hard to look at, since we know Boromir, primarily as like traveling companion, you know what I mean? It's hard to sort of see him, to feel his gravitas as the heir of the Lord. He's like the crown prince of Gondor, basically, except not officially a prince. But anyway, yeah. Okay. All right, Angbor. It's good to see you again. I trust you followed the boy on his errand. I had a suspicion you would, my friend, for you are a hobbit of honor. Yet, if what you say is true, Aragorn was wise to send me here. The lady has no such power, I assure you. You need not fear imprisonment. Okay. You see, I bear a missive on his behalf meant for the lady's eyes only. The war shall not wait upon her stubbornness, so let us quell her curiosity and continue to the east. Who's... Aragorn has sent a letter to her. How thoughtful. Aragorn has told me much of the Lady Terenis, though it was... Tell you what, actually, let's save this one. I gotta go. I gotta go get my kid, or he's gonna be standing on the sidewalk. Okay, so tell you what, I'm going to just X out of this and I'll read the quest text next time. So I'll be standing here with Angbor, being fearless, until, sadly, not next week. So next week, I will be in Southern California. SoCal Moot next week. It's our final regional moot of the fall season. I've just come out of this weekend, is the first weekend I am at home since the 17th of September. That weekend was the last time I was home on a Saturday. It's been an incredibly busy travel season. But our fall moot season is just about done. And we are, so again, I'm headed to Carlsbad, California for SoCal Moot. Really looking forward to SoCal Moot and getting to reconnect with people out there. In Carlsbad, we've been in LA the last 2 times we've done SoCal Moot, and we're moving south, Carlsbad, which is between LA and San Diego. So I hope this, we've got a bunch of people joining us, still time to join us next week in Carlsbad. So I'll be out there then, so I won't be able to stream next Friday as I'm traveling on that day. But after that, things are going to quieten down considerably, and I don't have any planned travel, I think, until like the holidays for the rest of the year. So Gryfflet should be able to make some excellent progress up towards Minas Tirith. I don't know how reasonable it is. So we've done the quests here. We're on the, I think, got to be at least halfway through with the Tumladen one. So I think we must be getting there, right? We'll have a few sessions left on Upper Lebennin probably, and then we've got Lasarnach. as we move in. But I think, I don't know, maybe if I can get some reasonable attendance here in these next 2 months, November and December, which I think I should, some reasonably stable attendance for my Friday afternoon streams. I don't mean your attendance, I mean mine. Then I should be able to get, maybe we can get Gryfflet up towards Minas Tirith by the new year. I don't know, possibly. Anyhow, that will be fun. And then 2023 can be the year of Minas Tirith for Gryfflet, and we'll see if I can get through Minas Tirith in a year. Lots of statues to identify. So looking forward to. I cannot tell you how hard it was when I was doing my Wigan quests to run through Minas Tirith and not explore everywhere and every plot line and everything. So, oh man, can't wait for that. All right. Anyhow, thanks everybody for joining me. I'll see some of you, I hope, in Southern California next week, and we will say in the meantime, thanks very much for watching as always, and I will see you guys in 2 weeks, if not before. Thanks everybody. Bye now. Thanks for joining in on my rambles around Standing Stone's brilliant digital adaptation of Tolkien's world. If you enjoy these adventures, please consider supporting this and other entertaining educational programming by donating at signumuniversity.org/fund.